And we are live. I'm just getting queued up. I'm sorry about the delay, but I was having issues with my camera. And I said, all right, let me just restart my computer. And upon restart, it decided to let me fix this here, sharpen this up. It decided to update itself. So that didn't work out so well. And that cough I have actually had a coronavirus scare this week. I've been traveling a lot and on airplanes, tight spaces, and we always hear that the numbers are going out of control. So I went to New Orleans this past weekend. It was rainy, kind of cold, and then I started getting cold symptoms, and I thought I was a goner and that I was. Look, what the hell am I doing? Oh, here we go. I'm just trying to queue up on Instagram as well. For those of you joining me on Instagram, just know that I'm only going to be here for exactly 5 minutes, the first 5 minutes that I allow, or I wait for people to join the room here on YouTube. That's I guess, the platform that I'm most comfortable on, and I feel I'm able to kind of present in the best way possible. Today, we're covering how I invest or how to invest in real estate, really more or less how I invest. My strategy is best suited for myself and people who have the same uh, trajectory as me. Hey, Suzette, how are you? Welcome for joining, or thank you for joining. Um, Slowly but surely, people will trickle in for the next 3 minutes. But yeah, so as we wait for some other people to arrive and get all queued up, yeah, I had my little coronavirus scare. For the most part, I've been kind of on the fence about how I feel about the disease and really how infectious it is. It's obviously pretty infectious, um, but it hasn't affected me or people in my household yet. My parents were affected in New York, but down here in Florida, we've been pretty good. Um, Even though Florida's numbers are out of control or are rapidly increasing. But I started having like this tickle, this cough, a little bit of chills, and I was like, "Oh, here we go. I'm done for." But I got my PCR uh, check, and it seems that everything's okay. So I am alive and well so far. I'm alive. I can't really say that I'm well, but I'm alive, and I'm COVID free for the time being. So aside from that, I think I did a poll last week where we're talking about or questioning whether or not I should continue with these lives and sort of what format works well. Jay, thank you for joining us here, but definitely make your way on over to YouTube because for the first 5 minutes, we're going to be just kind of calling attention from Instagram, bring everybody over to YouTube. That way, I'm able to be a little more focused in my response and really what I'm going to deliver here today. So, those of you joining us, hey, Aida, welcome, welcome. I'm making my way on over to YouTube in exactly a minute and 10 seconds. Randy, I'm going to be at YouTube. You might as well come on over, get used to this YouTube broadcasting, considering that you're now contributing content. Oh, awesome, Jay. Come on over. Got a minute left to go. Those of you who are already here, make sure you like this video. Apparently, when this is broadcasting on YouTube, the more people who are in simultaneously, the more they kind of push it to people who are not in the entp Life community. The more people who like it, the more people who are engaging with the content, the more they see that it's interesting content. So if you can like this video, comment, be as engaged as possible, that definitely helps me out, and it helps spread the word about what I'm doing here on the channel, teaching people how to invest in real estate, how to start home care and healthcare companies, and really just figuring out how to monetize ourselves in our particular environment so that we can take that money and live whatever lifestyle that we want, or whatever that is to you, whatever that dream life is for yourself. Clean Earth Now, ENTP, here to welcome you crazy person. All right, guys. So I'm cutting off on Instagram. Those of you who are still there, make your way on over. And we're going to get started here on another edition of our lives. But just to wrap up what I was saying in the intro, I did a poll where I questioned people, should I do more of these lives? And the overwhelming response was yes, to do some lives. Some said to keep it to 30 minutes or less. Others said to break it out into 30 minutes of informational and 30 minutes of Q&A. And I think that's going to be the better format. My last live went 2 hours, which was kind of excessive for me. I don't necessarily shut up when I start going, especially if I'm interested in the topic. And it kind of ran on for a while. So I'm capping this out at 1 hour. So at 9:20 Eastern Standard Time, we're going to kind of close up shop. And I'm going to take that format of talking about what the topic is of the week, and then some question and answer. Every Sunday, I release a video here on the channel. And that's a thought out video that I kind of put a lot of effort into coming up with the script, the concept, what I'm going to capture, what I'm going to share. It takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of effort. So I only put out videos like that once a week. What I'm going to do is tie these lives in every Wednesday following that video. So whatever the video is for the week is a topic that we're going to be kind of looking at or examining a little closer in the lives on Wednesday. I haven't kind of gone full-fledged into a podcast where I'm going to be bringing other people on. Time is really something that I'm stretching to the max. So for now, it's me talking to you. And I think that's even better because those of you who are following and interested could get the feedback or the direct attention that you may want, and more richer responses than I'm able to do in the comment section. So today's video is all about my investing strategy, how I got involved in investing in real estate, and how you possibly can do the same. All right. So I'm going to break this out into 3 parts as I talk through my experience with investing in real estate. The first part is how I got started, exactly what got me into this industry. The next piece is what is my overall strategy. And the last piece is what's next for me, what's on the horizon, what's kind of in my future ideal world sort of thing. And then I'm going to break out into question and answer. So just bear with me. Let me get through my piece. You can ask questions as I'm kind of speaking, and those questions will accumulate in the comment section. But once I'm done with my piece, that way I can stay kind of on target with time, then we're going to go into the questions. So as I'm kind of going over my strategy and what I do and in my history, feel free, ask a question. If you can't stay for the whole video, come back, see your answers, see your questions answered. And, at least that way it wasn't missed. Okay. And you don't feel as if you were neglected. You could always come back. This video is going to be captured and saved. So you could always revisit it and make sure that your question was addressed. Perfect. So let's get into it. Welcome, everybody. Randy made his way on over. Thank you, Randy. Yeah, it's a lot better. It's the same camera. So I have it set up on a live feed, and I'm able to get myself more in focused. It's a lot clearer than the freaking webcam. All right. Awesome. So I have people in here. Let's go. So the first thing I want to do is kind of give some background as to how I got started in real estate. And it's like many people's story. I got started in real estate out of personal need, really. I was going to Stony Brook University, and the program that I was in was like a non-matriculated program. So when you graduated and you had to do your clinicals, you weren't guaranteed housing. Already, Stony Brook has a housing issue. Like many universities, there's more and more enrollment. They don't have enough beds in the dormitories to really accommodate all the students. I even think at Michigan State University, the only students who are guaranteed housing are freshmen. After that, everybody kind of ages out into the community, which is something to pay attention to, especially if you're looking to invest in college towns. College towns that are saturated with students are a good place to invest. Either way, that was my scenario. Me and my fraternity brothers were all in the same program. We were aging out of the university and we needed a place to live. One of the guys was a loan officer, and in those days, you really didn't need much to get a mortgage. It's very different times than now. This is 2006. This is the height of the housing market boom and fiasco. All you needed was good credit and a house to back up that property. And some of the guys who were in my fraternity, not myself, my credit was already maybe in the low sixes at that point. But there's some of the other guys who had better credit than myself. So they were the ones who got onto the deal for the credit. I had cash to just get the house in contract. So the first deal that we got into was I believe it was a 4-bed, 3-bathroom house, 3 levels with a full basement right across the street from the university. And we were able to subdivide that house out into multiple rooms and rent it by the room to ourselves and to our classmates and the, I guess what would now be alumni of the university, but students that were in the university as well. That property immediately started to cash flow once we had it at full occupancy, and we realized that what we had was a commodity that was in demand. One of the things that I like about real estate, like most of what I invest in, is that it satisfies a basic human need. A lot of my investments and a lot of my investing strategy is dependent on satisfying human needs. If you are providing a human need, you will always be in business as long as humans exist. Housing, which is shelter, food, water, energy, transportation, healthcare, I think are at this point all necessities in human life. Whether it's providing propane for homes for heating fuel, or wood pellets to heat homes wherever you are, coal, electric, solar, whatever it is, if you could get yourself involved in energy, you know that there's a high demand for energy. I think also at this point, data and internet is now a necessity, telecom as well. So the more that you realize what people are using in their everyday lives and they more or less cannot live without, that's where you should be invested, food, etc. So once we realized that we had this commodity that was in demand, not only for our area, but satisfy this human need, we started to inch up and pick up more properties as a group. And that ended when the market crashed. When the market crashed, all the banks adjusted their lending terms because they were way too loose and decided to get super conservative. In my initial group, it was 5 guys who were investing in property together. Out of the 5, I would say 4 of us are still involved in investing in real estate. 2 actively, me and one of my partners, and the other 2 more or less passively. They're real estate, they're landlord owners. They still own the properties that we got together, and they own their own real estate, and they have some exposure to the real estate market through our investment club, which we developed as a fraternity to give all the guys in our organization an opportunity to invest in deals alongside us. I hope that vacuum cleaner isn't getting picked up. If it is, I'm sorry about that. So that's the history. But once the housing market crashed, I noticed that people who were investing in real estate kind of disappeared. Another thing that happened when the housing market crashed is that it kind of shook out all the weak hands and all the people who were kind of just like investors of the day, right? Like right now it's Forex in the stock market because things have been pretty volatile. So you have a lot of people paying attention to that. But there's always going to be like the gold rush or the tulip craze that happened centuries ago. People always get involved in like the investment of the day. And when that bubble burst, it shakes out all the uncommitted investors. So from 2007 to 2009, I didn't do any deals because funding had evaporated. I was one of the only ones who stuck around and said, hey, you know what? even though the economy took a downturn, my real estate is still performing. And I felt like even though houses were upside down, meaning the value of the homes were below the mortgage amounts, they were still generating cash flow, and they were still generating cash flow with very little pressure. So I was like, you know what? I need to continue in this, because my overall thinking was, I'm 24, 25 years old at the time. And if I just hold on to these properties for 30 years and 15 years, if I get a good deal, if I get a few properties, I'll be a millionaire by the time I retire, and those properties will be paid off. So if I retire at 55 or 45 years old, I'll have a few $1 million of real estate paid off and collecting 100% of the rent minus taxes and insurance, right? And I was like, okay, that would be a pretty good lifestyle. So let me just focus on getting more houses that either spin off cash flow or it will be paid off in 30 years. That was my amateur thinking when I wasn't too concerned with cash flow, because I had a job, I was working on my business. And I was like, as long as I have the rent covered or the mortgage covered, I'm winning, because somebody else is paying off my mortgage. That is true and that is good, but it's not the best strategy to have. And from 2009, I got 2 properties, and then I waited another 3 years before I got my next one, because I had to save up some more capital, find loan programs that were willing to lend to investors. And as it was at 2012 that I started to get hard money loans and able to buy and flip real estate. Now, those of you who are here from Instagram, there was a property that I posted this week that was my first flip with hard money. And that's why it's there. It kind of means something to me, because it was the first time that I moved away from the 203K loan program, that I moved away from some of the weird programs that existed in the early 2000s. And it was my first hard money property that I used my capital and raised capital to do. And it was different than my other properties that I did, because it required more cash and it required me to be way more creative with making the deal happen in a time where people were still pessimistic on real estate. In 2012, people were still talking about the Great Recession. People were still burnt by real estate because so many people got burnt. And that's where I really started to make some progress. It's been 8 years and I've accumulated a little over $17 million in real estate assets under control, management, and ownership. And I say that because some of my real estate I outright own. Some of my real estate I have long-term leases on. And the aggregate of that real estate is valued at $17 million. All right. If it was all quantified in that way. Now it's about, I would say at this point, 70-30 real estate owned versus real estate under management, meaning that I have a long-term lease on it. And that 30% is my commercial real estate assets, which is a shared office space similar to this one here, called Soul Spaces. Now, each year from 2012, I progressively did more deals. 2012, I did a deal. The following year, I did a deal. Then I started doing 2 deals a year, 3 deals a year, 4 deals a year. And I realized that keeping properties and renting them out was a whole lot easier than selling properties. And that's where my strategy started to take shape. The first property that I listed on Instagram, the initial intent was to flip it, right? Renovate it, beautify it, make it a house that people would be excited about buying, and sell it. And I had a bunch of people come check it out. The house was pretty at the time. Still is kind of cute now, but it's, almost 10 years of wear and tear. And I was getting these outrageous, and this was the first property I was flipping. So I was showing up to all the open houses, meeting the buyers, talking to them about what I did and really trying to push them along to sign a contract. And so many people had complaints about the size of the kitchen, or they had complaints about where the kitchen was located. They would rather it on another side of the house. And I was just like, who cares? I mean, this is literally what I was thinking. I was like, who cares? It's nice. It's functional. How is this the thing that you're complaining about? And after maybe 3 months of it being listed or 4 months of it being listed, I got tired of like people poking at, oh, I don't really like this. This doesn't feel good. And I was like, you know what? I have an idea for this property. And the way that I designed this property was that you could actually get 3 units out of it. It was a single family house that had a full basement, and it had like an accessory. It actually had an accessory apartment before I bought the house, but it had this accessory unit, and I opened it up so that the accessory unit was part of the main house to make it feel larger. And I gave them the option that if they wanted me to close it off as an accessory unit, I will, so that that accessory unit generates cash to offset their mortgage. This property I was selling for $300,000, or like $299,000, $300,000, and a $300,000 mortgage in this town at that time carried a mortgage payment of $2,200 to $2,300. The 1-bedroom accessory apartment currently rents for $1,200, and at that time, I was able to rent it for about $1,000 a month. So just renting that one unit almost slashed the homeowner's cash requirement or requirement to meet their mortgage in half. And I couldn't understand why younger buyers, couples, etc., that didn't have children or whatever, weren't willing to do that, because it seemed like a no-brainer to me. And I was like, if you rent out your basement, that's another $1,000 or so, and then you're almost living in this property for free. That wasn't a selling point. And I was just like, you know what? I'm sitting here and I'm thinking about it. I was like, if I rent out this entire house, I'll be able to rent it out for $4,000 a month or so, and my obligation is only going to be $2,200 or $2,300. I refinanced it and kept it. Actually, me and my buddy worked on the refinance together, and we kept the property together because, once again, my credit was marginal at the time. Not even marginal, it was pretty bad. Also, this week I posted a meme that said from 2009 to 2012, when the market crashed, things were chaos for a lot of entrepreneurs and a lot of people. I was fortunate enough to work in healthcare. I kept my job. My staffing business was on the ropes. My line of credits were getting pulled. Everything was kind of in turmoil, and I was over leveraged with like consumer debt. I defaulted on my consumer debt because it got out of control for me. I had to default on some of my business debt because, once again, my business revenue had declined. My real estate was in good shape, but my credit was awful. So this is one of the first things that I want to kind of tell you, is that just because your credit's awful doesn't mean that you can't put together a deal. And just because you don't have a lot of money saved up doesn't mean that you can't put together a deal. And this is why I have my real estate investing course called Killing the American Dream, because it really goes through what I'm telling you in 30 minutes over 15 hours and shows you exactly how I managed dealing with bad credit and being undercapitalized to start doing flips and buy and hold real estate. So I'm more or less living proof that things aren't always going to be rosy, and you don't have to be in the perfect moment to have success. The stars don't have to align for you to advance in this career path or in this endeavor. You just need to kind of know what you're doing and be willing to take what you've learned and apply it in the real world. And the more you do that, the better you get at it. And then when the stars align, you hit the home run. But when the stars aren't aligned, you do pretty fair. You get your base hits, you accumulate the stats, you make progress, you get closer to the goal. So you don't have to sit around and wait for your debt to be zero, for your credit score to be an 800, and for you to have thousands of dollars in savings to do your first real estate deal. The most important thing is you know how to do a deal, because once you know how to do a deal, you know how to build a team around you and and kind of tap the resources of others to make your project actually happen, right? And it's no different than doing a project like building out a software solution or building a company or building a doghouse. You need your resources, you need some knowledge, you need to actually go out there and do something. And when you need help in areas that you don't understand, you hire the help or you rent the help, right? Same exact thing here. So that first technical flip that I did, it wasn't the first full renovation, but it was the first one that I did like using the tried and tested model of hard money, rehab property, buying an REO property, doing a gut renovation, etc. That was my first full deal. And I didn't even flip that deal. I kept it, and it's now a property that I still own, that I'm able to, that's appreciated a considerable amount, about $50,000 from the time that I acquired it, right? So, $50,000 over, what is that? 8 years is, let's just call it 6% a year. Plus, it's been spinning off significant cash flow. It's getting paid down. So the return on that property is awesome. Also, I get to claim the depreciation of that asset over time, which is also a really good thing. So all in all, by not selling that property at that time, I'm actually making out better. And that ultimately became the core of my strategy. It was to go in, buy these foreclosed homes, buy these dumpy houses using hard money, and then refinancing either with some sort of conventional loan, selling the property to someone, or keeping it with some sort of like exotic loan, like a Velocity or a Visio or one of those lenders who do like portfolio loans. And what I started to think about was like, well, for every property that I do end up successfully selling, that pretty much capitalizes me to do another property. So if I sell one, I'm able to do two the following year or the following project. And I was always working a job so that I had income coming in. So I wasn't tapping my cash flow. I wasn't tapping those profits to survive. And it's important that you maintain your job, or you drive an Uber, or you have some sort of side hustle or side job to support yourself, because you don't want to take the cash out of your business to support yourself. You want to take that cash that your business is producing and leverage it up in more real estate. So I started to kind of like think, maybe I should buy one property, flip another, buy one property, flip another, and at the same time start to publicize what I'm doing so that I could raise money from other people and raise interest. Obviously, investors that believed in me early on come back into secondary deals and tertiary deals, and people who skipped on me the first time, second time, third time, fifth time, they started to see the pattern of success and then started to get involved too. So not only was I be able to build my portfolio based on money that I generated from flips, money that I raised, but I also had one other piece, which was profits from my other businesses. I started to realize that for every dollar that I have in cash, I'm able to multiply that by a factor of 4 to 5, and sometimes even more than that, by investing in real estate. So for every $50,000 profit or $50,000 of cash that I had, I envision that as being another $200,000 to $300,000 house that could produce either $50,000, $60,000 in a flip, so I could get another house, or it could create maybe $50,000 to $60,000 in equity plus $400, $500, $600, $700 in cash flow. And I still own that asset. And more often than not, when I refi, I get to recapture either my full $50,000 that I invested in on the front side and essentially get that property for free, or I would get some of the money trapped. But let's just say I got $15,000 or $20,000 trapped, but I had $60,000 in equity. It's still a triple when it comes to my financial statement. Got to reset this. Sorry, guys. That's just I have a 30-minute deal on this. There we go. Oh, I'm recording again. Perfect. All right. So what I started to realize is, like I said, every dollar I earned or every $50,000 I earned allowed me to buy one more house. And if I bought properly by buying a house that was in crappy condition, but well under market value, renovated that so I could get the boiler fixed, the electrical fixed, the roof fixed, all the things that would become a nightmare for me down the line. If I'm, as a landlord, if I keep this property, it's not going to be a problem. I fix it on the front end. So I have maybe 5, 6, 10 years before there's even a problem that arises. I was like, I take my $1, I multiply it into $4. And if I do this right, when I do my refinance, I get my $50,000 back, or maybe $30,000 back, 35, whatever it ended up being. And I still have a good nut of money to go and do the next deal. And that started getting to a point where I started doing 1 property a month, 2 property a month. There's some months that I close on 5 properties. This Friday, I'm closing on 1. Next week, I believe I'm closing on another. And I have a third that's kind of in limbo that I'm not sure if I'm going to pull the trigger on. You start to get to a point where you're adding $1 million of real estate assets to your portfolio a month. Some months might be slower where you're adding 300,000, 200,000, but on good months, I add $1 million. This year, I easily could have added another, I would say $5 to $8 million of assets if we didn't get hit with the pandemic. But that was all like this accumulation of experience and this accumulation of confidence and success that allowed me to kind of be able to quickly identify what's a good deal versus a bad deal. It allowed me to raise money from friends and family than from strangers, because I now have a track record to stand on. And then it allowed me to start getting my real estate returns to a point where, between cash flow and the occasional flips that I do, because I try to flip maybe 1 out of 4 or 1 out of 5 properties, that money that's coming in now powers a team that expands or multiplies my efforts. I have a project manager. I have property managers. I'm taking on one of my partners is now going to come on full time and be employed as a portfolio manager. He's going to be able to raise money. He's going to be able to kind of invest his time purely on this business. Remember, my primary business is home healthcare. So I'm doing this. I've been able to do all of this part-time, secondary to my primary, working on the weekends, working during the evenings, and building what is this growing and sizable multi-million-dollar portfolio. But now that I have more and more cash available, I could now employ people to be a multiplier of myself. So it shouldn't be an effort to do $1 million of transactions or $1 million of accumulations per month. Because if you think about that, let's just say I did 5 deals a month on average. And the average deal, when I sell, I do 5 deals, right? The average deal has about $50,000 to $60,000 of equity. Some of them, like my Elm Street project, has right now like $200,000 worth of equity, including my cash that's in there. And like my outstanding debt on that is $390,000. The market value is $690,000. So there's $300,000 of equity sitting there, but of course there's money I've given up to fees and that sort of thing. So when you have your average deal at $50,000 of equity in there, or $60,000 of equity, and you're doing 5 deals a month, that means that you're adding $300,000 to your net worth a month. If you sold one of those properties at $60,000 a month, you would have $700,000, not including your rental cash flow, you would have $720,000 of annual profits from that effort, right? When you pay your project manager, a nice six-figure salary, you pay your portfolio manager the same, you pay your property managers maybe $50,000, $60,000 a year, you could put together a pretty functional team of administrators together for maybe $300,000, $350,000. Meanwhile, you're still adding $250,000 of value to your portfolio every single month. Every year, you're increasing your net worth by $2.5 million, and you're probably increasing your cash flow by a factor of, let's just even say conservatively, you have a 2% net cash flow on $10 million a year. You're increasing your cash to your pocket in cash flow by $200,000, plus you're probably paying down your mortgage by another $200,000 or so on average per year. Okay, if you're accumulating property at that rate, no, you're paying more than $200,000 per year. But let's just say, for argument's sake, and for the sake of this quick conversation, it's that much. So that's pretty much where I want the majority of the people who follow my method to be, and that's how I want them to think. The first project that cash flows $500 a month, it's cool, right? It's your management's going to fall on you, but that $500 a month is going to maybe cover your car payment and insurance, or it's going to cover your daughter's ballet lessons. I don't know, right? Something along those lines. You're going to be able to find an expense that you now eliminate. Another way of thinking about it is that $500 a month, let's just say you're getting paid, I don't know, $70,000 a year. That $500 a month is like 2 days off for you, right? So you just bought 2 days off in that one property. So I want people to start thinking in these different ways. But that first $500 a month shows you that it's realistic, and shows you that if you adjust and scale your operation, that the more of these properties that you get, the closer and closer you get to retirement. Eventually get to retirement fairly quickly, and then you start getting to a point where you're making enough money from these transactions that it covers your lifestyle and it gives you more money to keep investing. And that's where the snowball really starts to get interesting, because you could pay people to raise capital. You could pay for advertisements. You could pay for, you have more cash on hand to do more deals. So there's so much that you could do when you have more money available to you. It doesn't look that way when you do your first duplex or your first triplex or your first single family purchase, because the numbers are small. But once you satisfy your personal needs, everything starts to change. So what's next for me is to continue on building out my team so that I could completely pass off the responsibility of raising capital, identifying properties, managing projects, etc., to that team. And then I could start building out the next version of the business, where we exclusively are focusing on multifamily projects. I mean, 5 and more units, more robust, bigger projects, because I'll have one portfolio that is the 1 to 4 family range, and then another portfolio that's focused on the 10 units, 20 units, 50 unit projects. And that's kind of a newer territory for me. And what's interesting to me as an ENTP, I need that change. I need that diversity in action. So that's what my future looks like. I want to continue to add $1 million of real estate to my portfolio every single month until I hit the $100 million in assets under management mark. That's my next target, because at that point, I know that I'm going to be cash flowing anywhere from $2 to $3 million a year, and then still adding $3 million, $4 million a year to my net worth as my properties are paid down. Right. So at $100 million a year, I'm looking at making anywhere from like 6 to 7% total per year, because I'm making my 2% to 3% spread on the rents, and then I'm making my 2 to 3% on my amortization schedule across my entire portfolio. So that's what the future is, and that's what's next for me. And I'm absolutely on pace to hit those targets. And I want you guys to start thinking about that. But that pretty much wraps it up for how I got started, what my overall strategy is, and what's next for me. Okay, just to wrap it up, I got started out of personal need. I needed housing. I was graduating from college, and one of the guys had the idea to do this. It wasn't even my idea. My current strategy is to buy 1 to 4 family real estate that is distressed, that's beat up, foreclosed on, abandoned, those type of properties, rehab them, and the 80% of those properties I keep and 20% I sell for operational cash and money for, life's pleasures. I'm going to continue on that path by assembling a team that's focused on that, building out at $1 million of assets per month. And I'm going to build out a secondary team that's going to start doing larger projects where we're just acquiring multifamily assets or even building multifamily assets, depending on what makes the most sense. And that's it in a nutshell. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to the questions. And for those of you guys who are here and you like what I'm saying, please like this video. Likes matter. Not that the like count matters for me. I don't really care about how many likes a video got, but I know that the more video is liked, the more YouTube will push that video and the more people will see it. And then there's more people that I could influence and eventually have them kind of following and joining this community. So that's why I'm always begging for likes and subscriptions, because those things send the signal to the machine that we're doing something positive here. All right, so now we're going to dive into these questions. And I'm only going to focus on questions that are related to real estate, because I could get thrown off by that. So Clean Earth has this question about number 1 career choice for an entp, VC on the side. That's not what we're discussing today, but those are the type of questions that we could preserve or reserve, or you could leave even in the comment section below, because I do answer questions in the comments. When I do talk about ENTP personality types, careers, and that sort of thing, we could have that discussion. Just looking out for... Okay, this is all personality type questions. Okay, Jonathan Stogstill asked, I'm 19, I have 10K, some experience, and self-employed. What do I do? Okay. What do you do? 19, 10K, 19 years old, 10K. I would first educate myself on different real estate investing strategies. Obviously, my course is one place that you could do that, but you could find a lot of information on YouTube, books, other people. The information's out there. The only difference with my course, I structured it in a way where it's kind of in order and really tries to set you up for kind of all of the different scenarios. But I would educate myself first, and then I would try to invest alongside somebody. Partner up with someone who's a little more experienced than you. Let them know that you're interested. They're going to, believe me, of somebody who's flipping property and managing 2 projects at a time, 3 projects at a time, may want an extra set of eyes and ears, someone to maybe help them choose different materials to style it a little better, potentially find people who are looking to buy that property, build relationships. They're going to be stretched on time. So if you could find a partner that, that will allow you to invest alongside them, allow you to learn, but also delegate some responsibility to you, so you could, not only have your feet wet by having some money invested, but take the responsibility where you're actually doing on your own. That would be the best bet. $10,000 is too small to invest alone. Being self-employed also makes it kind of difficult to do like some of the traditional programs, like a FHA program or a conventional loan. So with 10K, I would definitely partner up with somebody who's more experienced, learn from them, build that 10K up to maybe, like I said, $40,000, $50,000, where you can start doing deals on your own, or get enough experience and know-how to raise money from friends and family so that you could start managing deals yourself. What if you don't have a construction background? You don't need to have the background to put together a team. Everything about construction and about how to manage a project is certainly on YouTube. It's certainly on the internet. You could watch flipping shows. You could do so much to learn the basics of construction. You could even find a contractor who will let you visit job sites and ask questions while they're working. Some of them would love to talk to you about it, especially if they're going to end up working a job for you at some point in the future. So construction is not the bottleneck in this. It's more important that the fact that you're identifying your weakness and that you don't know construction means that you need to have either a partner who does, or you need to make sure that you identify a contractor that's their life that's willing to work with you. Jonathan's asking the same question. I've done some real estate leasing and I'm thinking of getting licensed, get a job or license, then accumulate real estate on the side. How do I start with 10K? I think I answered that question. And I think if you do that, your plan to kind of lease real estate or get your license, that's going to give you more exposure to the industry, give you more experience. You'll understand how to submit offers. You'll understand what lenders are looking for. You'll understand your market better. And it allows you to accumulate money. So if you really want to be an investor, being an agent kind of at least gets you into the shark's tank, right? Being an agent doesn't prepare you to be an investor, but being an agent at least makes you aware of how the transactions function and how to identify value, and knowing the moving parts, knowing the appraisal process, the inspection process, title, insurance, attorneys, how to deal with them, how to deal with customers. So I think that's a pretty good idea. Gamer for life. Is this a real live stream? Yes. Gamer for life. Poor black thing. I definitely know I'm not poor. And I'm pretty sure I have more money than you. Live a better life than you. Enjoy better women than you. So nothing you could possibly tell me means anything. And I'll give you a platform to talk your nonsense, but you know that means nothing to me. You don't even have the nerve to have your picture up in your avatar. So most likely you're ugly and just a sorry human being altogether. But thank you for joining me in this live. Wow, these people are pretty wild. Okay, Yolanda Guerra. I can't. Guerra. Yeah, there we go. I have my parents' home that really needs repairs from the foundation up, but don't know anything about construction. Any suggestions on how to begin? Was thinking of the 401k to fix it. Where should I start? I'm thinking that you're saying a 203k to fix it. I wouldn't necessarily tap my 401k for that purpose. Maybe I would. I don't know. You could tap your 401k if you are saying your 401k, or you could use a construction loan to do that. I would encourage you, if you're here, to reach out to me directly. My email address is in my about section, because I'm going to need a lot more information about this deal to kind of advise you on what's happening. If the house is in bad shape, the first thing that I would do is get a contractor to come in, a general contractor, and say, hey, I need to get this house fixed so that it does well in inspections and it's attractive to buyers so that I could resell this. Walk it. You don't have to give me a detailed bid, but give me an estimate as to how much you think I'm going to have to put into this. That way you could kind of examine how much is owed on the house, if there's even a mortgage owed on the house, and if it's worth it in your community to invest that amount of money to repair the house to get it sold. Believe it or not, you might do just fine selling it to an investor right out the gate and saying, hey, it's paid off. It's worth $300,000 or whatever dollars. If I spent $100,000 fixing it up, I could sell it for $500,000. That means I get an extra $100,000. Do I want to deal with that responsibility? Yes or no? And you make your decision from there. But you need to know how much it's going to cost you to get it marketable. And then you're going to need to know, what does your market command? And from there, you'll be able to make your best decision. Susie CD is asking, thanks, Karl, for the great info. So what does the ideal person taking your course look like? I think it's a wide range of people. I wouldn't say that there's an ideal character for my course. I think the course works really well for people who are kind of market conscious, saying, hey, I want to buy my first home. I want to buy something under market value. And I want to make sure that I'm just buying the right way, because we keep hearing that the market's going to crash, the market's going to collapse, the price is going to come down. And I just want to buy a property that, I'm insulated against. So if the market does come down, I'm not getting screwed. So that program can work perfectly for that person. That program can work also perfectly for a parent who's got a kid going to college and doesn't want their kid living on campus and doesn't want to pay rent, and says, you know what, I'd rather buy real estate in that college town and have my kid live there and manage a property, and that could be his property to manage and cash flow off of, et cetera. And then it could be, hey, I'm the person who's looking to retire. I want to have passive income, or I'm looking for a career in real estate investing. I think anybody who's looking at real estate as a avenue to invest can benefit from my course. If you don't have much money, then you learn how to raise money and how to source money to do a deal. And you learn how to speak the language of real estate so that you're able to raise money with confidence. For those who are well capitalized and have experience with construction or real estate experience, it kind of fills in the gaps on how an investor thinks and how they approach it. How do they source capital? What sort of deals do they do? What should they be looking for? So I really think it satisfies anybody who has an interest in buying real estate, being a landlord or flipping. Goliath, what's going on? Thank you. I'm back. Obviously, I'm back. The update with Brazil. Cool things happening in Brazil. I think my first video, hopefully it's done by this weekend. I should have it up on Sunday. It's the first of a 4 to 5 episode installment of me going to Brazil, kind of giving you some insight into what Brazil is all about. As a nation, the value of living there, why I'm considering it, the type of properties I'm looking for, cost of living, that sort of thing. So things are moving pretty good. There's a property that I've isolated, and if the numbers make sense and we can come to an agreement, then I have a really, really cool project that may be kicking off. What is my experience with, thank you for, first of all, God Feka. Great content as usual. What is your, always got gas, man. I'm sorry. It's awful. I can't edit that out, but it's life. Great content as usual. What is your experience with real estate taxes in New Jersey? Real estate taxes in New Jersey are high, just as they are high in New York. You have to pay your taxes. Cool thing about real estate is that as an investor, your taxes are deductible, and your asset depreciates over a 27.5 year depreciation schedule. So, if taxes suck, everybody can agree on that. With real estate, typically, if you're paying taxes, you're making money. And then everything else, if you're paying taxes, you're earning money, right? You don't pay taxes on zero. You're probably going to pay taxes on a property if it's just vacant and you're not renting it. That's the only time that it probably be in that scenario. But chances are maybe your depreciation schedule exceeds those taxes and whatever. Taxes aren't necessarily a bad thing. And there's a lot of ways that you can use the taxes and the tax laws for your real estate to benefit your personal income or to reduce your personal tax liability. But ultimately, if you are earning money, you're typically going to have to pay more in taxes. So just keep earning more money and keep accumulating assets that offset your taxable income, like real estate. Engrave C, what do you think is a good credit score to start with your first loan? I'm not the lender. I would talk to your lender about that. I think with hard money loans, you're looking at being at right now at a minimum of 650. I think some might be doing 620s. Same thing with FHA. You might be at like that 650 score point. Obviously, the higher your credit score, the better of an interest rate that you're going to get. But you're talking about maybe a 1%, 2% difference. That's not going to be if the 1% or 2% is the make or break on your deal, then it's not even the right deal. So what I would encourage you is, one, know where your where your credit score is, know what's affecting it negatively, and then really start talking to lenders that you plan on using, whether it's traditional lenders to buy a regular home or a hard money lender to buy a distressed asset. Talk to them about where you are and what's possible for you. That's the only way that you're going to know where to go, right? Do you need to reduce your score? Is your score just fine? If you increase your score by 100 points, how much does it actually save you? If you're flipping a property in 6 months, what's the difference of 1 percentage point? It's negligible compared to what you're potentially going to be earning. So that's kind of the way that we look at that, or that, at least the way I look at it. Charlie, how does one get started how does one get started in an expensive housing market like New York City? Banks are very strict now. Invest somewhere else, or have more money, or deal with a more flexible bank. You don't necessarily have to invest in real estate in New York City. First of all, New York City is not particularly good for my 1 to 4 family real estate investing strategy. The main reason for that is that New York's real estate prices are very high in comparison to, even though the rents are freaking high, they're very high in comparison to the rental markets. For example, a house in Queens Village might sell for $600,000, but only rents for $3,000 a month for a single family house. Or $1 million 1-bedroom condo in Long Island City, you might only be able to get $3,300 a month for it. So you're talking about 0.5% return on investment per month. Meanwhile, I could take $200,000, buy a 3-family house in Port Jervis, and I rent that 3-family house for $3,000 a month. Or I have one property that I picked up for $120,000, spent about $70,000 fixing it in Middletown, so that's $190,000, and I'm able to rent that property out for $3,300 a month, and I'm spending $190,000 on it. And Middletown is what, an hour and 40 minutes away, or 90 minutes away from New York City, but you're seeing way more return on investment compared to the New York City real estate, and a lower cash requirement. So expensive markets, the only thing that I could say about a market like New York City, San Francisco, LA, is they tend to benefit from appreciation because those are like landlocked. Sorry, this thing's about to cut out again. Those are like landlocked cities. So there's not much you could do, right? It's either There's more and more people moving to those, except in New York, people leaving, but there's more and more people moving into those cities, raising the demand, reducing the supply. Prices are going to go up. I don't like to speculate on real estate and say, oh, my prices are going to go up. Some markets, they don't go up. Some markets are pretty flat. You look at, some markets in Pennsylvania, Ohio, prices are pretty bad. Michigan, but they still do fairly well from a rentals perspective. These are properties that see 1.5% a month sometimes. You're seeing 18% a year on some of these assets. So imagine an asset's doing 18% a year, but you only have a 4%, or let's even go crazy, and you have a 7% interest rate, right? And it's doing 18% a year. You're still making 11% spread on that asset. You're not getting 11%. You're getting 11% from Berkshire Hathaway investing in their fund. So, you have to be realistic with how you're comparing asset classes and saying, is one good versus the other? You spend $1 million in New York City real estate, you're going to be doing 4%, 3% a year, right? Meaning if you even have a 3% mortgage, you're making no money every month. All right. Or you could take that same $1 million, spread it out over 5 properties in Middletown, doing 15% a month. I don't know. I'd rather be in Middletown doing 15% a month than New York City doing 3%. That's just my personal opinion. Clean Earth. What's my thoughts on multifamily versus single family? Okay, what's your thoughts on multifamily versus single family homes when it comes to renovate and sell versus keep for the long term? Single family homes, I'm more inclined to sell them. You'll see that more of the properties I sell are single family homes, just because when a tenant moves out, it's vacant, and it's usually vacant for like 2 months, 3 months or so. So all your revenue stops. Single family homes, when you're renting them, the good thing is you might have a tenant in there for 6, 7, 8 years. I have some tenants that have been around that long. And so you don't have as much of a turnover in a single family home as you may a 1-bedroom apartment. But multifamily homes that have like 2 or 3 2-bedroom apartments, you'll be able to fill them up quicker, and you're also kind of diversifying your revenue because you have multiple tenants in there. And then when you get to like true multifamily, 5 units and up, the cool part about that is that the value of that asset is based on its operating income and the overall performance of that asset. So if you drive rents, if you make improvements that support higher rents and you reduce expenses, you've essentially raised the property values and not really dependent on what the market is necessarily doing to extract value or force appreciation in that asset. All right. So, wow. Damn. There's a lot of questions here. And I'm already at the hour mark. Okay. Damn. All right. I'm going to try to find some good questions. Does the course include the legal aspects of flipping a home or buying in general? Yes, we cover some of the legal aspects. We also include some of the documents that you would need to raise capital. So that information is there. But you should always consult. I'm in New York, New Jersey, and Florida. The real estate laws are different from state to state. So naturally, you should always consult your legal counsel in your area, but we do touch on it so you have an idea of what to expect and what to look at. But the details of the law, I'm not an attorney, and you're going to be hiring attorneys in most of your transactions, so they're going to be the ones who are paid to advise you in that regards. You'll never know. Should we wait for the housing market to plummet like next year? You never know what's going to happen. What if the market goes up 20% from now to the time that it plummeted? Are you going to miss that 20% appreciation or that ability to flip in that time, waiting for it to plummet? What if it goes up 20% and then plummets 20%? Then where are you relative to today? So, don't try to time the housing market, especially. You could try to time the stock market. It's a little easier to time because you're kind of looking at things in days or weeks. The housing market moves slower than the stock market does. So don't try to time the housing market. That's just a waste of time. What's your opinion on the housing preservation industry, especially versus traditional real estate investing? I really don't know. I don't look at that. So I don't really look at housing preservation as an industry. I really don't even know what you mean. Yeah, I don't know. I am sorry I can't answer that question for you. Ignore a gamer? Yeah, listen, man. Guys like that or girls like that, they don't phase me at this point in my life. I'm pretty secure in who I am and what I am. It's really unfortunate that someone is so simple-minded and weak that they try to project their insecurities and their inadequacies on who is a stranger to them. It tells you a lot about who they are. So usually when I see someone like that, I kind of try to tell them who they are, which is most likely a broke, ugly, undereducated person who's just unhappy with themselves. And that usually makes them go away. Engraved, does my course include tax details? No, it doesn't. I particularly focus on 1 to 4 family flips, buy and holds, the BRRRR strategy. I don't do auction properties. So I'm usually buying REOs or wholesale sort of properties or direct properties from owners. So that's what we cover there. I'm not really a tax dude. I don't get into that. What's up, guys? I love Brazil too, man. For those of you who are potentially interested in kind of travel or even maybe living abroad, I know there's a lot of people who are here on the channel who came from my Italian series on how to buy a property in Italy for just $1. People who are into that series tend to be kind of open to the idea of uprooting their life in the United States or whatever country they're in and living in a country that's attractive or cool to them. One thing that I realized, I did a post where I asked, where should I do my next international investment? I listed Greece, France, Spain, and Brazil. And the overwhelming majority of people did not include Brazil. Only 8% of people said Brazil should be the place that I invest. And it's evident to me when I talk to people about Brazil, when I look at travel pictures, that Brazil is like a forgotten country in the world's eye. Brazil's a 220 million person country, one of the largest economies in the world, unique culture, magnificent landscapes, beautiful beaches, beautiful people, rich of culture, and it's somehow forgotten. So when I see other people appreciate that country, yeah, because I was the same way. I traveled to Brazil for the first time in 2019, and it's right here in the Western Hemisphere, huge country that I just overlooked. When I got there, I fell in love with the place immediately. And because that was my experience, I kind of felt that a lot of Americans and a lot of people in the world might feel the same way. And I kind of made it kind of part of my life to promote the country. I think the people are great. I think the country has a lot of potential for, like I said, tourism, for life in general. And since I'm someone who's looking to live internationally, Brazil is definitely one of the places that I would call home. Okay, Nina Ball. I really enjoy your videos. Can you speak to having a high debt ratio but excellent credit? How can I purchase a property with this situation? Ooh, that's a hard one. Okay, so Nina. Okay, I have the solution for you. So I got you. If you have a high debt ratio, my guess based on that question is that you're probably highly educated. So maybe you went to master's school, you got your master's degree, or maybe you went to professional school or pursued your PhD or something along those lines. That's my guess. So it most likely isn't a bunch of consumer debt. It's probably student loan debt. And your income doesn't quite justify the amount of debt that you have. That's a common problem. If I were in that situation and I'm getting declined, or maybe you're not getting declined, but what you're getting approved for is fairly low, and you're in a more expensive market and you don't want to necessarily move into the hood, I would either take that as a warning that you are in too much debt to be looking at higher priced real estate, that you should get your debt under control before you really start to stretch yourself. I have friends and family that are physicians, attorneys. They're in the same scenario. And I think with more education and you start to enter into higher like social statuses, you kind of have this need to kind of keep up and say, what did I work for? I need to show the house. I need to show that I'm making it. Big mistake, big trap to fall into. Look at it as a warning to not do what all of those people do, which is over leverage themselves and then work till they're 75 years old to pay off their house. And when they pay off their house is now, 30 years from being renovated and going to sell under market value when they're downsizing back to a smaller house because they came to their senses at 70 years old. Don't be that person. Now, if that's not you, and for some other reason you have a ton of consumer debt, you could move yourself to aggressively paying down that debt so that you're bringing your debt to income ratio lower to help you qualify for more. Once again, maybe now is not the time for you to buy. It's not always the time for you to buy. Third option, if you're going to be a real estate investor, that debt to income ratio starts to kind of go out the window. Meaning, if you go to a hard money lender, they want to see that you have enough cash on hand to do the deal and service the debt. Credit is like, they're more concerned with the asset. Is this a good deal? Are you buying a house for $100,000 that needs $100,000 worth of work, but will sell for $350,000? If your credit is fair and you have the cash to put down your 10, 20%, 30%, whatever they're requiring, depending on the lender, if you have the cash to do that and the cash to service the debt, they're going to lend to you so that you could do that deal. Maybe you do a deal like that, you flip it, you cash out $100,000, you kill that debt that you have, and then you get your property. Or you do the same exact thing and you refinance into an investor's loan. Once again, those investors' loans, they don't care about you personally. They only care about the asset. Does the asset generate enough revenue and rent to exceed the ratio that they're looking for of debt to service ratio, right? Debt to the mortgage ratio. Some of them are looking for 1.2, some are looking for 1.15, some are looking for 1.3, meaning they want, if the payment is $1,000, they want you to be doing 1,300 in rental income. Or if that doesn't match up, they won't do the deal. When you start looking at it from an investor standpoint, they're less concerned with you as the individual and your situation than they are with the asset. Lease options, if you could find, it's not a strategy that I do, but there's information on lease options online. It's not my strategy, so I'm not going to really comment on it. But there's more than a dozen ways to invest in the real estate market in the United States, and maybe a dozen strategies. You have to ultimately decide which strategy is the one for you. That's your responsibility, to get the education about the different strategies and say, out of all these strategies, what am I best equipped for? Am I capable of being a landlord? Am I capable of managing a renovations project? Am I better at sales and negotiations? So maybe wholesaling is for me. Tax, am I somebody who likes the action of an auction, and I like to buy tax deeds, or I like to buy, outstanding tax bills? You have to decide you have to know what strategies are out there. And once you know the different strategies, you have to be honest with yourself and say, which one of these strategies am I going to be able to manage? Me personally, as myself, realistically, as me, which one of these looks good to me or is good for me? If it's none of them, don't do it. And that's my advice there. Investing is not for everybody. Everybody can do it. I think if you have an 8th grade education, you could read, you could do some basic math, you have an internet connection, you could invest in real estate. If you haven't figured out who you are, and you have issues with fear, or you don't have a good support network, those things are going to eat you up no matter what industry you're in. If that's where you are, you need to resolve that aspect of your personality before you can make progress anyway. And it's not to, if that's you, it's not to kind of discourage you, but it's really means to get a handle on those aspects of your life. It's going to affect your relationships. It's going to affect your job. It's going to affect your investments. You're going to stay in this circle of anxiety and confusion, and you're not going to make progress. So you really, really need to know yourself and be firm in who you are before you start really finding success in your life. I think that's the most important thing. I bought my first home in 2017. Oh, sorry. Another question. I bought my first home. Wow. Here we go again. All right. I think we got a loser here by the name of Joshua Thomas, clogging up the comment section. Let's see what I could do to block this dude. F out of here. All right. I didn't know I could do that, but now I know how to deal with losers like Joshua. All right. So Paris Simone, I bought my first home in 2017, and I have $125,000 in equity. Congratulations. That's good. I have $25,000 in debt currently. I would like to invest in a rental property in my state of Washington. Am I in a good position to do this? You haven't told me how much cash you have on hand, number one. Number two, Paris, is that I think you're in a good position, right? You already own your primary residence. You have some equity there. You understand that, wow, this real estate stuff adds value. That's 3 years ago, and you're up $125,000 on your home. $25,000 worth of debt, how much is that costing you a month? $300 to $500, let's just say, is your monthly obligation. That's not that much. So I'm not really looking at that as being a huge issue, unless it's like a lot of short-term debt with higher monthly amounts. But at $25,000, I would guess you're between $300 and $500 a month as far as a payment. Maybe it's $600 because it's credit card debt. I don't know. or car debt, whatever is driving that expense. So let's call it 600. If your next investment is going to cash flow that amount that is your current debt, and then it also appreciates $125,000 in 3 years, which let's just say that doesn't happen. But let's only say that it cash flows $600 a month. The cash flow from that asset will allow you to pay down that debt a lot faster if you wanted to, right? Because you're making the payments now, and now you're going to have another $600 to pay that down even quicker, right? You'll get through that in almost 2 years time, right? Something $1,200. It was 12. Yeah, it'll be about 2 years before you knock that out. And if it's revolving debt, credit card debt, as you knock it down, it doesn't mean that money is spent, because if you're in good credit standing and they don't decide to pull back your limits, if you needed to dip into that money for a repair on one of your properties or something along those lines, you can. So all you're doing is taking advantage of purchasing an asset that's whipping off cash flow that allows you to either manage your debt better or improve the quality of your life, with having the long-term potential of appreciation, the long-term gain of paying down that asset, and also the tax benefits of the deduction that asset brings that your primary residence doesn't currently have under the modern tax code, right? So we used to get way more deductions for our personal properties than we do now, but having an investment property allows you to depreciate that over that 27.5 years against your personal income if there's enough of a loss to carry over. So I would overall say, yes, you should, but it really matters where are you getting the initial capital from to fund your additional purchase. And when it's all said and done, is the cash flow from that initial purchase like enough to justify you taking on more debt by ripping out equity from your house or adding to the debt that you already have? So it all depends on the performance of the asset that you're looking to buy, in my opinion. Yes, I have a video on Section 8. I have multiple Section 8 tenants. It's a slower process. It's a different kind of tenant, but the money comes as promised. It's not my first choice, but it's something that I'm open to. It's more screening of the tenant, just so you know that you have somebody solid. And it is more oversight because you're going to have people inspecting your properties, more paperwork that you may not have when you're dealing with a direct pay tenant. Nina, you are welcome. Okay, so here's the last question, and I'm out of here for the night. Stephen Wolf, hi. I am a Canadian real estate investor. Love your videos. I almost was gonna, drop a Canadian joke, but love your videos. I just joined. So sorry if someone has already asked, but how easy is it to find contractors in Italy for those cheap properties? Actually, nobody asked. All right. So if you watched my series, and I always revert to this because it's a lot of the questions, not even a lot, maybe like half of the questions that are asked here are questions that are addressed or information that is addressed in content that I've already released. So chances are, if I'm covering a topic, I've answered the question in the video, or I've answered the question in the comment section. But this is a Q&A live, so I understand that your question. I'm just telling you that this is something that's there. And I'm going to repeat exactly how I found my contractor. I was walking around Musamelli. I walked past a house, like I drive past houses in the United States, and I saw construction going on. And like I do right here in the USA, I walk up to those contractors and I introduce myself as someone who's an investor in real estate. My name is Karl. I'm investing in this area. I'm always looking for contractors. I'd love to take a look around at the work that you do. Maybe I could hire you on a project that I do. I walk into the property. Of course, they're always looking for business. I look at their craftsmanship. I get a feel for who they are. I get a card. I get their phone number, something along those lines. I did the same exact thing in Italy. I was walking past the house. I saw them working on the house. I said, let me walk in there. I took my camera. This is all on ENTP Life. I walked into the property, spent time with the Italian guys who didn't speak English until the boss came who spoke English. He toured me through the house, and he's currently the contractor that is working on my project. Not only is he the contractor that is working on my project, but the owner of the house is now one of my friends. And when he goes to Italy, I actually send him money and things like that so he could pass it over to the contractor to do the work rather than doing the wire transfers. He was actually, like last week, he was going to visit his property anyway. So he was like, yeah, I'll bring the money over. Not a problem. That way, you're not getting dinged for the wire fees and the VAT tax and all that stuff. I'll just bring the cash over. You know, it's actually that easy. Yeah, you have to trust people. Yeah, it's people managing projects from afar, but it's only money. And if you approach it that way, you kind of taking out some of the guesswork. You get to see their work. You get to understand it. And if you can't do that, then you should always go with a referral from somebody that you trust. The reason why I even entrust the contractor more is because he's working with this guy from England. I vibed out with him, talked to him, good connection there, trustworthy dude. And, you know, we built a relationship from that point. And we're in the same community. We're investing in this small town. We want to see that town prosper. We have assets invested there. So if you were doing the same deal in Musameli, I would absolutely introduce you to my contractor, walk you through my property so you could see his level of work. And if you wanted to move forward with him, fantastic. Now you have your contractor to do your work. So that answers that question. I hope it answers the question at least. Paris, you're welcome. Siobhan, not a problem. This is what it's here for. I actually like this because you don't know when you have 0 subscribers and you're doing a YouTube video, or you have 200 subscribers and there's no comments, or you do a live and you have 300 subscribers, somebody just showing up is like, somebody cares and is listening to what I have to say. So the fact that you guys are here participating, paying attention to what I have to say, asking questions, allowing me to talk about what's going on in my life, you give me a platform that not only allows me to talk about things that I'm interested in, it allows me to develop relationships. I've hung out with YouTubers. I've befriended some of them. I flew from New York to Florida with a guy I met on Instagram who was also a pilot. I was moving my plane from New York to Florida. He messaged me and said, I would love to co-pilot with you. And we flew my plane down from New York to Florida, the longest trip I've ever done. And it was with somebody that was a stranger. So, you know, you guys who are coming out here asking questions, taking time out to get to know me, you know, I appreciate it. So that is the end because my camera is tapped out. So once again, thank you for joining me here at ENTP Live. Next week, we're talking Brazil. I'll see you there. Video is really interesting. I have a guest, Yusuf Watif. He has a channel here on YouTube. You definitely check it out before, you know, my video launches. But I have a tour of Sao Paulo and a in-depth interview with Yusuf. Make sure you check that out this Sunday. Hopefully I have it ready in time. But once again, thank you for joining me here at ENTP Life. I hope you enjoyed. Take care.